Hi. Gotta get rid of the tada. I mean, I'm always in the mood for a celebration, but it's no longer time for that. Anyway, we're back. Another mod stream here. Ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen. I haven't looked at analytics, but I would expect it to mostly be gentlemen. All right, spent a good amount of time today. I did spend a little bit of time working on HYDRA, actually off stream. I processed some stuff related to the Immortal graphic, and I started to think conceptually about what I'm going to use it for. Much to my chagrin, I don't really see a whole lot of other options, so that is indeed, as I think Roller Skates put it yesterday, a placeholder for a placeholder, but that's what we got. So we'll be messing around with that. I will be replacing the Terminus with some other concept entirely, and I will also be augmenting the Idol and the Golem in some way. I'm not sure how I'm going to do the Idol, but the Golem will have some sort of passive that allows it to essentially... I think it'll increase movement speed based on missing shields. So it's sort of like the Infested Terran passive, but obviously it adds a completely another layer to it, knowing that it's based around shields and not HP. And yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that will work out. Like in theory, you're maybe rewarded more if you like pair it with a Clarion or something, and then you keep its shields increased, and so you would want to make it so that it loses movement speed when its shields go down. But the internal logic in my head was like, the idea of this unit essentially putting more of its power into movement speed when it no longer powers its shields, and having that thematic of like it gets stronger the more damage it deals to a natural limit of whatever its shield values are. So I think that would be an interesting thing to do. I guess the main issue is that you don't really have as much precise control over that mechanic. Like as the player using the Golem, you kind of just have to get used to the fact that mechanic is in the game. There's not really an intuitive thing where it's like you expect it to start moving faster. You need to play around with it at various levels if it's going to be similar to the Infested Terran thing, where like maybe it could just gain a massive amount when it's missing shields, or when it's below a certain threshold. Like it would gain a significant speed boost, but that would be like the point at which it happens, I guess. If I wanted to make it like more instinctual, more intuitive, more consistent, I guess, because otherwise you're dealing with weird percentages, like what happens with the Infested Terran. And I'm not sure how I feel about that really, but I guess we can try that implementation out, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So that'll be the passive for the Golem anyway. Then we're going to be looking towards updating the Idol in some capacity and adding a new robotics unit that will be more of like a... I think it'll be more of like a... I kind of conceptualize it like a supportive unit. I'm going to take another look at what holes need to be filled in the overall options that you have from the robotics units. Because the main idea that I have is I'm basically trying to make it so that... like in vanilla StarCraft, or like in Brood War, right? So non-HYDRA, you have this dynamic happening where you basically are looking like your entire race is specialized to various degrees, and then you got some all-rounders, like the Marine or whatever, the Zealot is like an all-rounder on the ground for like anti-ground or whatever. So like there's certain degrees to which certain things are specialized, and then there's certain things like you need to spec into a different branch entirely. For Protoss, I'm kind of going the other way, where I'm trying to add enough units to every single branch, the Templar branch, Robotics branch, and Stellar branch. I'm trying to add enough units to all of those such that we have a situation, excuse me, where we don't have to worry about... Like, we don't need to worry about, for example, running out of, like, options to at least partially answer somebody's composition. Like, maybe the air answer to Swarmers, or, like, spamming, like, a lot of cheap units like Legionnaires or something. Maybe the air answer is better suited to that, because Legionnaires can't retaliate. But then they kind of fall off against Nathra cores or something that can retaliate, and you have to sit there and think like there's got to be some other maybe I spec into High Templar or something, so that I don't have to worry about that. I just storm them, or Archons will handle them or whatever. Like there's going to be different degrees to which things are specialized, similar to what my breakdown of the default Brood War tech tree. But I feel like there's some way for us to accomplish something anyway. There must be. So what I'm hoping to accomplish is basically figure out like all the combat roles and kind of shadow box different compositions against robotics, like robotic specific compositions that only use the units that you can get at the robotics bay or robotics facility or the robotics authority. And so if I can manage to figure out like basically what the holes in the composition are, that should work. But that's pretty much my only thought right now. So I am hoping that goes by relatively unscathed. Anyway, we are looking at finding. So here's Death March. So we can duplicate this and call it. We'll just give it the same name as what it used to have. What's up, Loller Man? All right, so now I've got to figure out what the... Oh, max health divided by 2 is what the... That's the... The limit? So if I set this to 0, maybe that will work. I'm not sure. He yelled at me. I don't know, what do I do? Minus max health? It's pretty much the same fucking thing, so I don't know why that would be necessary. Okay. All right, let's give that a whirl. Not much. I'm just going to be doing some tech tree work for the Protoss again. Right now I'm checking out the Golem. It feels like it already has a movement speed, so that's probably some bug. There does not appear to be any difference, so I think it's always in effect, which might be related to this. I guess we can try... Oh, this is supposed to be divided by? Apparently. That might have led to some issues. Yeah, so I was just talking about how I want to basically jump in and figure out what the problems are with some of the... what's missing, anyway. From, for example, the robotics branch of the Protoss tech tree, as in what strategies are they forced to tech into other branches to even try to counter? Like, it's not about having a perfect counter for every strategy in every branch, because then there's a little too much parity. But the example that I gave was like, if your opponent is building a lot of zealots or legionnaires, then one composition that could easily destroy it is something that specializes in dealing with swarmers or swarms of units, some sort of crowd control option that's also an air unit. Like, that's an obvious case because then they can't attack back up. But if they're building if they're going for a swarming composition that can retaliate against air units, then maybe that levels the scales and suddenly it makes more sense to branch out into archons or something, or reavers or whatever. So it's not really about like there being a one size fits all approach, but I want to make sure that you can at least try to respond to some threats based on some of the changes here. So okay, well, that didn't help. So what if we just leave it with no multiplication or division? Bonk. Okay. Seems to be working. All right, that should be it. That's all we need. I'm just going to jump into button sets here. And so that's implemented. Just go ahead and jump in here. I have to move this up a little bit. It's getting in my way. Okay, so taking another look here, I'm going to be implementing that Junker graphic as a unit. So I know we've got Shuttle, Simulacrum, and Vassal, Observer, and Idol. I guess my main sort of complaint, if you can call it a complaint, is that the robotics facility still feels too, like, it feels weird that you produce shuttles and observers, which are strictly utility units, from robotics facilities. And, you know, I played around with the idea of the Nexus producing observers, I think, or shuttles, or one of those two. I wonder if that's not a bad idea, though. Or you have like a core structure that produces these utility bots like shuttles and observers. So like a small production facility, basically, that's separate from the troop production facility. It feels like that might work in theory. I'm not sure how I feel about the whole like Nexus thing. In such a world, both observers and shuttles would require forge, probably, which would be pretty incidental and almost not really be a requirement. But it would mean that you would have access to it's offset by the fact that for one, shuttles are 200 minerals, so it's not like they're cheap. But it would also be offset by the fact that in order to produce these units, while you do have more ubiquitous access to fast, well, I guess like overlords are ubiquitous, but you have more ubiquitous access to detection and transport than Terran. It still would make it means that you have to slow your roll when it comes to worker production in order to achieve that. And so it's not like it situationally could put you behind. And maybe I could even like increase the build time of the observer or something to compensate for the fact that it's now easier to access. Yeah, I think the way that I looked at it is more on the side of like that profanation shit where you're profaning. There's some amount of heresy or like just regrettable actions involved in going deep into the robotics tech tree. Like I really wanted to like emphasize the fact that it felt really awkward, or felt like awkward is not really like a strong enough of a word. It's like, I don't know. The idea of speccing into like one of the things that the robotics units have is like, although some of them have passives that benefit from other robotics units in the area, like being nearby. So like simulacrums gain increased movement speed and attack speed to a cap based on the number of robotics units that have died nearby. And then Clarions don't benefit specifically from robotic units, but because you can build swarmers more effectively from robotics, from the robotics facility, the Clarions do allow you to have more efficacy with their phase link passive. And then obviously Barghists, or it's not, phase link is an ability, but it's like a form switch. Barghists obviously have that passive that gives them a sort of it when they die, they increase the range around them, I think it was. Yeah, Barghists grant 0.5 extra range to all nearby robotic combatants. So that's like there's when they die, there's some sacrificial element to them. It's not specifically in the robotics. I mean, the Pariah is now a gateway unit, and that is, or a Templar unit. It's comes out of the Grand Library, and it's definitively like a profanation as well. Same for the Star Sovereign. So it's not specifically like a situation where it's disproportionate. Well, it is disproportionate, but it's not like only exclusive to that. The idea is that like there's a bit more of a taboo surrounding artificial like combatants. But that's something I would have to explore in an actual like an environment that would allow me to do some sort of world building, which obviously is not really facilitated in it's not I can build it. You know, I have built a lot of it in essence in my mind, but for one I'm going to be doing my own shit eventually. Like we're not really going to be working with Protoss specifically for very long, so there's not really much of a point. Anyway, the idea of having shuttles and observers on the Nexus is kind of interesting, and I might go for that. The other thing that this would allow me to do is I could move the golem to the facility, make it require the Grand Library, and then, or not the Grand Library, the Robotics Authority, and then I could make the new unit require what the observatory would, you know, the observatory would be changed to something else. So yeah, I think that could work. And then obviously you would have Reavers, Clarions, Barghests, and I mean, again, the problem there is like you only have 3 units out of the authority. I don't hate that. I guess one of the concerns I would have is that it's definitely like slanted towards air units, because now 2 out of the 3 air units in here are air, Reaver being the only ground unit. And then another one, like I could add the Architect, or I could add something else that's an air unit to the robotics tree, and that would allow you to facilitate that sort of thing. But it's definitely a difficult ask, you know? Like it's all air except for the Reaver. I also think that having shuttles and Reavers on the same structure, or at least in the same branch, makes sense too. But I don't know. I don't think it's like absolutely and 100% something that needs to happen. Oh, I have to rename the observatory again. So I guess no, I think it's actually fine for the idle to stay where it is in the tech tree. And we make the golem the tier 2. Again, it would require oh yeah, it would actually require the robotics authority, which is pretty simple. 1287. I think comstats are a really weird structure, but my solution to that problem is going to be to offer a lot of really useful options for add-ons for command centers, so that if you want to benefit from comstats, you're giving up an opportunity to do other things. So you can build treasuries to get access to other add-ons. You will be able to. You can't do it right now because I can't actually modify their command card because Firegraft corrupted the fucking data list and removed the entry from the spot. So I can create the button set, but I can't actually assign it. So that's fucking amazing. Anyway, aside from that, AI will be able to build them from treasuries, but players will not because I can't actually create the tie the button set to it. But the idea there is to offer so many options that are really useful depending on what's happening, that you either need to build treasuries, which is an additional investment, and they do require tier 2, or you need to give up that in favor of something else. So I think that's like a smoother way of it fixing the problem, but I also don't know really how I feel about add-ons in general, because they do feel like really slapstick. In the original game, they were just all over the fucking place. You had utility add-ons from the command center. You had tech add-ons from the science facility, and then you just had production / tech, I guess tech add-ons in a way that it unlocked more production options at the factory and starport, but you had nothing for the barracks. And it was just weird that the only non-production structure that had them was the science facility. And that like 2 out of 4 buildings, like half of the buildings were for production purposes and the other half were just for tech or utility. Well, so like one of them is for tech, one of them is for utility. It just felt really weird. Like there was no real defining characteristic behind it. So that really didn't feel good to me. Like I thought that was pretty stupid. So that's one of the things that I wanted to change, but oh yeah, I gotta actually set the time for this. Nice. I think they're an interesting approach, but I would also probably want to radically change what they actually do. Like, yeah, I'm sure they're really stupid to implement. But the problem with StarCraft 2 is that unless Blizzard wanted to do it at some point, you're not going to have any implementation, generally speaking. And even if they did want to do it, you can probably safely bet that the implementation that they have is really stupid and limited. So, I mean, that's the way it is in all of their games. But in StarCraft 2, it's less forgivable because you could just design your system to be more flexible. And so that would be less of a headache for them in case they wanted to pivot design-wise, which they often do when they're changing the game's balance every few months. You'd think they would have set this up correctly, but they're just shit. So, whatever. But anyway, I forget where I was going with that. I was going to say something else design-wise. Oh, yeah, add-ons. I think what I would actually want is straight up. I would want to explore the idea anyway of straight up adding on another part of a structure. So you add on another barracks to a barracks or something, if that makes sense. It would have to obviously be a different implementation of the source buildings. So it would be you've got this training center or a manufacturing plant of some kind, and you can add on another bit to either increase production speed or provide you with another queue, which obviously the difference is that you can spend twice as much money and get 2 units at a time, or you can spend half as much money but you spend the same amount of money but you get it twice as fast or something. So there would be a functional difference between those two, but it would be something like that could work as a way to augment production in a way without needing to specify certain things or whatever. But Wow, that you can't just like. I mean, the way that I have to do it is stupid because I've got to not only manually update like the weapon range, but I also have to do like aggro range, like attack acquisition range, basically target acquisition range. But still, that's only like copying and pasting the code once and then changing some like one variable, I think, or something. Like I can't believe you can't just like grab the weapon range or something. Yeah, I can't believe you can't just plus it when the bool is true and minus it, or not do anything, like revert it when the bool is false or something, like a target check. And if this like bool is true, that's fucking insane. I'm sure somebody out there who knows data really well might find some way to look at that, but it's so goofy. None of it is particularly sensible, that's for sure. So I do not sympathize. I mean, I sympathize. I empathize with you. I do not envy you. That's what I was going to say. I guess I got so many likes now on my tweets that they don't show likes anymore. I have to look at it on mobile to see it. That was a little strange. Although Twitter just straight up wasn't working unless I force reloaded to clear cache every single time I went there for like a solid week. I don't know what the fuck that was. I feel like you should just hold out for my engine and go there instead. Yeah. Why not, dude? All aboard the fucking RTS pain train. I can't wait to not have to worry about these stupid limitations, honestly. Like, I remember I got so angry that like 3 streams ago or whatever, because 3 where I lost my mind after closing the fucking map and breaking my ice map or whatever. That was so unbelievably annoying. I was very mad. Yeah. I thought I would hold out in Brood War for longer, but at some point I was just like, fuck it. So. Yeah, we're going to be like straight porting a lot of shit from other games. Notably, will be like full RGB. They will be 2D, like the engine's 2D. But in theory, like I don't know how to do model ports. I haven't like figured out how to port shit from 3D. But in theory, we'll figure out some way to do that because there's a lot of assets we could take from if we could expand our horizons to looking at 3D stuff and then like updating it and essentially like kit bashing shit in a sense, like where you're not really like changing the shape of the model, but you're just like making sure that everything is in order and then rendering it at a certain angle. Like Balothal was doing that for a Spartan at some point from Halo Wars, I think, because he was going to make a Halo mod. Yeah, well, at first I'm just going to be creating an environment where I can build HYDRA, rebuild HYDRA in the new engine, and see where we go from there. But I would love to find somebody who would actually be willing to start working on models and that sort of thing. But unfortunately, the only one I've ever met is DF. Everybody else has been like I've had offers from a few people and then they just fuck off. Yeah, good luck actually 2D animate, like hand drawing and animating an infantry graphic or something though. You need to model for units. I mean, you might be able to draw effects or something, but even then, I feel like there's probably better ways to do that in a particle engine or something like that. So... Well, I mean, in theory, it should be possible to just make like placeholder palette swaps or something where you're editing some colors here and there. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think you can do some pretty like okay placeholder level shit in actor events or whatever. Because I remember messing around with stuff like that. I don't know. That was years ago though, so who knows how much the back end has changed. Good luck, man. My my sympathies are with you, man. Yeah, we were just talking about that. Oh, there goes Restream. Glad I have to restart the client every now and then. Epic. I think I missed some shit because of that. Hold on. Oh. No, I don't think it's too difficult to balance a lot of factions, especially if you're balancing around single player content. Then really all you need to do is make sure that the player understands and on an intuitive level what the other units do. Oh. Gonna have to restart Explorer. For some reason, every time I start my computer, the taskbar that I have on the left monitor will only load whatever programs that I actually start. So by default, it has nothing compared to this one, which obviously has everything. And that, I don't know why, but restarting Explorer fixes it. So I don't know why that's like that at the start. So, if we're going to be talking about what kind of things that we want to achieve with this new unit that we're planning on adding for the robotics tree, I think it's only fair to take a look at what they actually have now, especially since I've decided to mess around with the positioning of some of these units. So we know it's going to be a unit that will most likely be available by default. So you'll have access to 3 units from the get-go. You can do the Vassal, which is the cheapest swarming unit, the Simulacrum, which is a ranged swarming unit that's a little bit more expensive. And then this unit will most likely be maybe a shorter range than the Simulacrum, but not a melee range unit. So I'm trying to think of like conceptually, if you had to shadowbox positioning for all of these units, the Vassal is obviously a flyer, so it's a little bit different. But the Simulacrum and the Idol would be like, the Simulacrum would be in front of the Idol in terms of weapon range. The Golem would be in front because it's a melee unit and it's meant to tank and stuff, intercept units. And then you'd have this new unit that would be like in between simulacrums and golems, or it would basically be behind whatever was frontlining. So it could be like zealots or whatever, but that would be the idea. So I'm thinking that would probably be the approach that we could take, and if we do it that way, we know we want a short range unit, because I think the simulacrum's range is 6. It's 5 range. So we're probably looking at like Hierophant base range or something of that nature, 3 range or something. And then we can do... I think we can have it be like a normal damage dealer. I would say we're probably in need of that, because I think vassals deal normal damage, but they're super weak individually. I will boot that up to confirm, because you never know. Oh, they actually deal concussive. I suppose I could lower their base damage a little bit, because I think it's 8 or something, and then we could make it something else. Listen, I'm hyped for you to start pumping out replacements, but unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know what would be required for that one. Man, there's so many units that I want to actually see real graphics for, but... Yeah, that's what I was hoping for as well, because even if, like, for example, the factory or whatever isn't perfectly lit the same way, if it at least looks better when attached to the, like, with its new size, then that's still a leg up, right? So yeah, if you're interested in doing that, that would be pretty good. Dog. All right, so since we know the kind of niche we want our unit to be occupying, I'm going to jump into unit ID and find some space for it. I know the artisan, for example, is up for grabs, whatever that unit ID was. If it's even still here. Okay. Looks like the... Alright, so we'll say Protoss. Well, I'm not sure what I'm going to make it yet. But I forget what 16 even is, unit ID was. Oh, dog. Trying to think of some terms here. Oh no. Oh yeah, I restarted my Explorer. Guess I'll copy the idols unit ID for now. Hmm. That's a better word, I think. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere in theory with all this shit. Okay. Obviously, that's not going to be the final attack, but we'll figure out whatever its weapon ID is going to be a little bit later. All right. Yeah. 96 should be fine. All right, so this flingy ID is 297. What the fuck? That was not the right one to do. So we need to pick GRP IDs here. $11.49. Very nice. Probably as good as any to copy. Okay, let's take a look at the unit graphic itself. So I guess this is like 22. I'm gonna need to add like some sort of muzzle flash to a lot of these graphics, I think, just for readability. Oh. Simulacrum. Oh, that needs to be gotten rid of. Script 512 does not exist. Oh, it's supposed to be 511, I guess. Dude, there's always some small thing that I fuck over myself with. Yeah, that not only was it wrong, so it was supposed to be 512, but I did 515 somehow. This must have been some typo. Guess there should be some weight rands in there. Oh, that's pretty good. Should be appear on attacker. I mean, appear on target unit. I hurt myself to hurt you. I guess the this kind of graphic would benefit better with the other method of automatically generating a shadow. Instead, I use the infantry one, but that should fix the bug there. There's one frame in there that shouldn't be there. I'm not sure if it's because I like requested too many or something. Oh, I see. 3-3 should be. Eliminated from that. That was my mistake. Yeah, I think the white rands are pretty useful for something like this, but the shadow is definitely off, and I'm not really sure why. Well, anyway, we've got another unit implemented, which is cool, I guess. I will go ahead and add the button for it. And the strings. Oh, I never did that, I guess. Okay. Oh yeah, I should have added the note that I also implemented the Golem passive, but I guess that's not that big of a deal. All right, I'm gonna take a quick bathroom break, and then when I come back, I'll be working on adding another Protoss unit. I think it'll be another Strider. It'll replace the Terminus because that concept doesn't really work for me. And then I have to reshuffle some of the stuff in the Authority, the Robotics Authority. So stay tuned. We shall return. I have returned. Why is YouTube so shit? Dogs. Dogs. They're back. All right, that should handle the Atreus's passive, which is not a particularly like difficult passive to program or a particularly novel passive, really, but I thought I still had PyTBL open, but I guess I did not. Oh, I guess before we even bother with that, we should actually add the units graphic. Okay, let's close that for now and get the unit implemented. 78. And add a 2 supply cost. I might drop the time cost a little bit, but might also be fine. Obviously, build score should be a little bit more reasonable. Other than that, we're looking at $24 plus 2 factor 1. It is explosive, but now it's going to be normal hit. I like how it was supposed to be splash, but I never put in the splash radius. That's pretty good. And fly and follow target is fine for now. Okay. And I'm going to need some sort of like... Maybe it'll end up attacking twice. But I'm going to need some sort of weapon overlay to make sure that whatever projectile I spawn appears in the right position. So that shouldn't be too difficult, but like I'll need some sort of attack overlay basically. Oh yes. So with that updated and implemented, I think we can comfortably go to the terminus. Atreus. It'll be 0, 0, 0. I can't believe how lazy I was when I was doing this. Bare minimum formatting, please. So now I just need to jump into images TBL, terminus, place this with Atreus. And then all right, let's see if that works out. Oh, 30. Oh, apparently somehow I wait randed there. Probably because I was tabbing or something. And it auto-completed a wait rand. I don't know how I wound up here, but all right, let's... Oh. Well, something's fucked up with this. 4, 4... I'm not sure why it doesn't move. I haven't seen that error before. Okay. It's set to work as a flingy unit. I don't think there were issues with it walking before I replaced the graphics, so something must have gotten screwed up here. Maybe it's unit is messed up somehow. Normal movement, normal attack. Seems right to me. I definitely think that its passive is a little too strong. So there should be like something like that actually. Because I don't think I was getting the right value for it. Not really sure why there would be a problem with it moving though. Oh, wow, that was really stupid. I was wondering what was going on there. Dude, what? Dude, I'm really confused by that. I'm not sure why there would be a problem with, like, you saw how much of impact that had on the cooldown. Oh, I know what it is. It's supposed to be like plus equals cooldown divided by 4. Or, I guess it should be minus equals. That was my own dumb fault. But I think its weapon is... Yeah, I never updated its weapon cooldowns. It's like supposed to be 2.6 or something. Atreus... Oh, 2.2. Okay. Let's test that value then. I make really dumb mistakes when it comes to programming math. I don't know why. At least I grasp it eventually. I still don't know why this guy doesn't fucking move, though. This definitely feels like there's something wrong with its eye script. Oh, yeah. Gee, I wonder what that might be. Go to repeat attack, by the way. Fucking amazing. I guess I should add like a debug message. This will have the downside of absolutely spamming, but whatever. What's up, Luciferius? Yeah, dude. They're pretty big units, honestly. I'll probably replace them with another graphic that I found from this same game, because this doesn't really look like they would have any sort of weapon, unfortunately. I think they're engineers or something normally, but they have this behavior where they can get up to twice as much attack speed just by standing still, like per attack. So they have a pretty slow ramp up time, I guess, but it's pretty fucking nuts. Potential. Yeah. It's active no matter what, probably because this does need to be divided by 256 or something. Maybe there's like get current shields in game. There you go. Do that. It's like some helper function that does it. Yeah, in theory, bunkers should allow you to like ramp up with them. I actually haven't tested that. Okay. That's a pretty noticeable difference, actually. Oh, wait. That's not what I wanted to stage. What's up, Bellathon? How you doing? Hoping you're feeling better, by the way. I feel like I've already asked you that, but I remember last fraud night or 2 fraud nights ago or something, you were under the weather. Nice. Well, we are looking at just having implemented 2 new units and a passive for the golem. So on this side of things are looking pretty fucking good. Earlier today, I had Veek help me make... well, I was just making them myself, but Veek decided to contribute because he's a cool guy. But I put together thumbnails for everything on the second channel with his help and advisement. I had some... how do I look at my own profile? I had some tweet about it, dude. This is what some of the thumbnails look like now. I guess I should probably make that my my new profile picture, actually. But it looks a little cleaner, you know, a little bit more attention grabbing. I especially like that the brighter color generally between orange and blue. Like both of those are kind of on the brighter side, so they'll probably grab people's attention, is my hope. Plus, generally, there's a decent amount of like white, which is also pretty bright. So, and I've got this sort of insignia, the microphone insignia on interviews, and then there will be like a different one that I do for talk shows and something else. At some point, I'll come up with thumbnails for the map analysis videos as well. And I also like that since these are my two main like interviews, what we have here is like the chevron thing, that's the separator, the arrow, if you will. I guess it's more like an arrowhead or something. You got like me on one side for like one of the interview series. It's like a like shape oriented recognition or whatever, you know. And then on the other side, you've got it's like, oh, it's hopefully some sort of obvious way to you know, differentiate them. At some point, I might also do like a different different profile picture for myself on like the Hammer Meat Anvil one compared to the Semi-Pro one or something. I was also thinking that maybe I would just make it so that like the picture that I have for myself in all of the different interviews is actually different. But I'm not sure. I'm also noticing that the time thing there is blocking out quite a bit of that. So I will probably have to restructure how I handle the topics, but it's all right. And then there's a little bit of negative space in some of them as well. Would be nice to not have that anymore, but it's only so much you can do, you know? So at least in one day. But on the Hydra side, we've got smoothed out stuff for the Templar side of things. You know what I just realized? I don't think we need the synthetic synod for anything now. That would be a hole to fill with the new... Oh, wait, no. Does the golem need that now? No, something needs the observatory, but I don't know what it is. Or something should need the observatory? Yeah, I think the golem should need the observatory. Well, I mean, obviously I'm not going to call it the observatory anymore. And then... So I'm not even sure if I already changed that or not. If I go into golem. Oh, I made it so that it needs the robotics authority instead of the observatory. What am I doing? I think I will make it observatory. All right, so that's in, and now we need to figure out what to do about the Strident Stratum unlocks bar guests, but then we're still missing something for the synthetic synod. I'm trying to figure out like what kind of unit would pop here. So again, considering what we need compositionally, we've got siege with the Reaver, utility with the Clarion, like defensive oriented utility to increase the standard or the time of your units, the lifespan of your units, the staying power of them. You've got bar guests that are like us, sort of a more specialized swarmer that obviously in death can be really, really beneficial to your other robotic units. You've got golems for frontline, manifolds for short range, all-purpose general purpose units basically. You've got simulacrums for swarming ranged. You've got idols for less swarming ranged that are a little bit more crowd control. Vassals for like standard fair swarmers. And then I think that's everything, right? So then under those circumstances, I do think you're missing some sort of like de facto powerhouse unit, which I guess we could be adding here. I just don't know what unit would make sense for that. And I'm really not looking forward to the idea of grabbing one of those really absurd looking vehicles from Armageddon, which are pretty much the only other cases of like something useful. Like this. It's just very like the proportions are all off, right? So I guess this could be some sort of hovercraft type vehicle. I'm not sure. Trying to conceptualize something. I just came up with the idea of some of the sort of tank type unit or whatever this sort of artillery piece, or I guess it wouldn't be like siege because that's what the Reaver is, right? But it would be something to the effect of like a powerhouse in terms of standard fare operations. And one of the ideas that I had was that it would have this single, very, very powerful in terms of like single target damage. Like maybe it would like deal 50 explosive damage. So it could be really, really powerful in terms of upfront attacks. But I was also thinking that the missile would split into multiple copies of itself, depending on how many other units were in a small area around the target. So if you're firing on a target that's surrounded by other units, there's a natural dispersal where you could have like one missile turn into up to, say, a cap of 10 or something. I don't know where I would even begin to actually do that. I guess I could reuse some of the interception code from the Empyrean and use that to find units. Or I guess I could just use a unit finder around the target and then split the missile appropriately. But the problem that I'm coming up with essentially is like figuring out how to actually split it from the position of the missile. I could also instead split it from the position of the unit, but I would actually want that to be some sort of like slow moving projectile. And so there's a bit of counterplay where only once it reaches a certain range threshold between the missile and the target, does it actually take into calculation or consideration like what you've got? So there would be a little bit of like precise micro you could do as counterplay to this. And you could like move a unit that you think is targeted and say, or just like, you know, split your army somewhat. And then like and it becomes obvious which slow moving or which unit the slow moving missile is targeting, you could say like, all right, it's one of these units. I'm going to like move them away or something so that, you know, all my army doesn't get DPS down to some degree. Or you could, maybe you actually prefer that because like maybe you've got a high base armor army, or you've got a lot of upgrades for your armor or something like that. And that actually reduces the overall damage you take. And so like positioning in that sense doesn't matter as much. Maybe it could be something like that as well. I don't really know. But I just like the idea of there being some positional gameplay based around the missile itself and less so about the unit, because we already have a unit that attacks as many units as are in range. It's the Madrigal. The new default mode for them is that they fire off one missile per target, and so their individual DPS is rather limited, but they have no cap as to how high their DPS can go. And so as a result of that, like I'll show you. Like, as you can see, it's dealing damage to quite a few units here. And so you can imagine, like, its base damage will probably have to go down even further than it already is, because it's at 15 explosive, which is pretty high. So it'd probably have to be like 10 explosive. But the idea that it can do that is pretty fucking powerful, you can imagine. So, like, the whole point is that it has to be very close range, relatively speaking. Like, any other ranged unit will probably eat it in, you know, put it to bed pretty quickly. And especially, like, higher base armor, higher upfront damage stuff. Yeah, you can imagine that it would be quite powerful against mutas. But, like, again, it requires positioning on behalf of it. Like, I could even drop its range to 5 instead of 6, which would mean that I think mutas, well, they probably wouldn't technically outrange it. Or in practice, they probably wouldn't outrange it. So if I did, like, what is a muta's range? Yeah, their range is only 3, apparently. But yeah, its base damage probably needs to go down anyway. Apparently it's dealing full damage to the target instead of explosive, which is really weird. Or it's firing more than one, I'm not sure which. I don't think so, though. It's like the first target gets hit twice or something, if it's a single target. I think. Like, we can test this with a... What's like a low armor, high size unit. Or I guess we could test it with, like, shields or something, right? Yeah, it's hitting that target. It's acquiring that target twice. So something broke with the the finder hook here. So Madrigal Furia match. This is supposed to stop that if it's the order target. Is there another? Is it attack target? No, that seems correct. So something else is happening there. So that's a bug that we have to fix. So I'll ask Iquare about that. But yeah, basically, there's a unit, like, based on that, I wouldn't want to override that unit's role or like have it overlap in the same sense. And I think it's a meaningful gameplay distinction in terms of what skills are allowed to be expressed. if you allow, for example, the core, like the gameplay is coming from the missile. The split is coming from the missile rather than the source unit. So that's just my 2 cents there. So we're looking at 22 for the weapon ID. Apparently. No, that's something else. 21 is probably the weapon ID. Yeah. So we'll say we'll drop the range and the base damage just because I think both are in order after that. It's definitely something that's it's almost certainly too powerful right now, right? And I can also like reduce. I think it has no armor, or does it have 1 armor? It does have. Oh wait, no, that's the wrong unit. 27. Yeah, it has 1 armor. I wouldn't mind dropping its armor to 0. I think that would also be fine. And I can drop its gas cost a little bit since it's less. What do you call it? It's less. Well, just to bring it in line with what I think its value will be. But that might have to go back up. Honestly, I'm not sure. So, oh yeah, we still have this open. All right, so I'm going to move the Barghest over by 1. And again, we're looking to add some sort of vehicle, some sort of, or I guess it could even be an aircraft. I mean, let me take a look at what we have. Like the main problem is that we pretty much don't have any other unit. The only unit that I haven't yet implemented is the Architect. And it's ready to actually be implemented, but I don't think this unit really... I mean, I guess yeah, you know what? Maybe it could. It's also not really fully implemented, actually. I'm going to have to redo it. Oh no, that's not what I wanted to start. I don't want to draw a duck. Get me out of here. Nice fucking airplane. There's a video by that Accursed Farms guy, who some people know from, I guess he's probably from his like Half-Life Machinima or something. But he made a video about user interface and how it should be a lot better than what we put up with for like Windows and stuff. And one of the points that he made that I thought was pretty interesting was he talked about how in his mind it made sense to rely, like he conceptualized it like helicopter versus airplane, and how like helicopter is a lot easier to maneuver and it's more dynamic, doesn't require as much precision. And for general tasks, he's right. Like an example is obvious is this, like clicking down here to minimize every program and go to your desktop, and wherever it is on your taskbar. For me, it's in the bottom right. That's like a super obvious way to improve the GUI experience of people, because like everybody knows how to trigger it, and all they have to do is like an arm swing. They don't have to do anything else, anything like fancy or whatever. And so that was an example he gave. And I thought that was an interesting point, because it's like, I mean, obviously I complain all about like UI and user experience and all this shit, right? And I do that all the time. But people are basically, I think, desensitized to me complaining about stuff, even if they agree with the complaint. Because I always try to like push people's thinking in that direction of like thinking about how much better things could be if we, if people cared about delivering a quality product. And so because it's almost like expected, I feel like it probably has a little bit less value. So when I see somebody else talking about stuff like that, where he's trying to push people to think outside the box, one could say it's inspirational. Did I miss removing some pixels down here? Looks like. So this could actually end up being some sort of like hover type, hovering craft or whatever. I think that could be an interesting role for the unit. So it would hover and avoid like spider mines and stuff, but it would be relatively slow moving, I think. As a bit of a trade-off. All right, I think we're about done with that side of the aisle. Kind of a waste of time to bother selecting those transparent pixels, since most of the time they don't actually end up getting anywhere in the final cut. But it's, I think it's good to remind myself that the areas over here is actually supposed to be team colored, so that I don't forget. It's like a frame of reference when I look back at, like, from one frame to another. Pretty useful for remembering where I was mentally. Because, like, the changes are quite subtle when they've got 32 facing directions like this graphic did. And as a result of that, we end up losing out on some, you know... It's, like, not as obvious when you you missed, like, 1 or 2 pixels in a small area or whatever. I do hope that this has, like... If anybody is out there and they've watched me deal with the slog that is porting assets from other games, and they're just like, they've seen all of the fucking behind the scenes or a decent amount of it, enough to know that it's not particularly enthralling. I hope that convinces them to say, fuck that, I'm just going to make my own art. Because that is the superior way, my friends. And someday I will go down that path as well. But that day is not today. Much to my chagrin. But all the same, we are almost done here. So this will be where I go back and, like, I use this as a basis for the edits that I go back and update on the other side of things. Make sure that it's relatively consistent. Especially since there are so many facing angles, you really want to make sure that there's a consistent offset for a lot of that stuff. Because otherwise it'll look more jarring when you're, like, missing some pixels or whatever. I should, I guess, clarify that, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I talk about and advise people to do probably wouldn't be picked up on by most people, but for me it's like I do look at it, and so since it bothers me, I mean, sometimes I just get into an attitude where I like when I'm almost done working with the engine, for example, where I say fuck it, I'm just going to have to make a compromise here because it's not worth the little bit of diminishing returns. And you know, that is very much in full swing in certain elements of HYDRA and other parts of my workflow, but you know, I don't think it's impossible to do something better than, you know, it's just a couple of clicks here and there. No real trouble working that in. I think we are good to go here. Hopefully this won't be super annoying to finalize. Oh yeah. Looks like it might be. Let me try indexing this and then recoloring it after the fact. Oh wait. Okay. I wanted to make sure I actually saved. That would be pretty fucking embarrassing. Fortunately, I can't really do that either, but most of the colors got removed from green to blue for some reason, so I guess that's fine. Gonna see if there's an immortal wireframe lying around, as well as a junker one. Oh wait, I'm supposed to be in here. If I search Junker, maybe I will find it. Though it always is ill-advised to use the search on stardate.net. We might be here for another year while we wait for that thing to load. Let's also pick another unit ID for our man. Looks like the autocrat is available. There we go. And or did I already have an architect unit ID? No, it doesn't look like it. At least if I did, I didn't specify. I don't know if this passive can possibly be implemented, but that's what I want out of the unit, if possible. The thing is, it's not really, if I want it to be a ground unit, which I do, I'm not really sure how that's going to work out exactly. So we've got the machinist saw and then synthetic synod. 13. Oops. So I got the wireframe for the manifold. All right, we'll go ahead and add this button set rule. That's as far as I'll go today. I guess I'll also hook up the units graphic. That shouldn't take too long. But aside from that, Some fucking bug decided to pay me a visit. Thanks. Always appreciate that, asshole. I need to open up the flingy for the battle cruiser. Use that speed. 640, 27, 7585. Let's do a turn radius of 12. This is architect. And that's 610. Oh, 1219. Okay, so we're looking at let's take a look at images TBL as well, because we're going to need to add the architect stuff. Oh, wait. Delete that. This is... $11.50 as expected. Okay. Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else that I need to do for setup besides obviously the script itself. What is that? 513 for ISID. Okay, and then I just need to actually put the graphic in the right folder if I haven't already, because I know we have the engine, but yeah. I think 119 was the ID that I settled on, but I don't remember now. Yeah. Oh, Wow. That was the wrong fucking thing, apparently. There we go. Easy. And then just gonna tick that. And we're good, I think. So obviously the weapon's not going to be set up properly. I guess I can copy antimatter missiles and paste entry and set the factor to 1 and give it the 50 and then crash. Seven range might be too much, but I'm not sure. It's supposed to be a fairly powerful unit, so I don't particularly mind if there's some sort of like really powerful association or whatever. Oh, now I've got to copy this and reopen weapons stat because I'm in the wrong entry. Because my actual fucking PyDat stuff over here was in another, like what I already had opened was in another area entirely. Oh, yeah, I never actually copy and pasted this. Try it again. Oh yeah, it's 42 and it should be less than that. And obviously it's weapon or whatever, its animation isn't finished yet. Okay, so for, I think it's 7 is what the, like if I go to vulture init, yeah. That'll be 7, and then I think the sprite stat circle should be like 21 on that or something. Let's close this for now. And close that, and that, and that. Okay. I guess it should probably hover, but maybe slower than other units do. Cool. All right, well, obviously it needs some work. It's not like actually implemented yet, but we got the bulk of it done. So I am wondering why it is not set up for success there. Oh, maybe the actual weapon didn't get loaded or something. I don't know. Doesn't seem to be the case. I don't know why there would be any problem. Fly and follow target, 119. Yeah, I don't know. I'll look into that later. Might be some issue with the ice script, but I do see an attack with call here, so no idea. We'll figure it out later. Thanks everybody for hanging out today. It was a pretty productive stream. Did a little bit more than I thought I would, which is always nice. Cool when that ends up happening. And I'll be back tomorrow for another one. I think it'll be a little bit earlier in the day with any luck. So there you go. Bye. Go away. Windows update. Jesus fucking Christ.